There are many satellites in the solar system. Jupiter has the most, 79. Saturn has 62, and so do Neptune and Uranus. Mars has small asteroidal satellites. Earth, of course, has the Moon, and what's more, even the dwarf planets have their own satellites. But there are two planets in the solar system entirely alone: Mercury and Venus. The presence of satellites for each planet prompted astronomers to do mathematical calculations. The numbers don't lie, and it turned out that Mercury's satellite was supposed to locate more than 3,730 miles away, and the one from Venus was supposed to be 9,320 miles away, but there was nothing at these points. Mercury is a strange planet. It is not yet fully known what it is doing near the Sun and where it appeared from. Its lack of satellites can be quite logically explained by the fact that if it had any, they simply burned out due to its proximity to the Sun. But why doesn't Venus have a satellite? In order to answer this question, let's first find out how the planets get their satellites. Today there are three versions. According to the first one, a satellite can be caught as it passes by a planet, the possible way Mars got Phobos and Deimos. The second version says that the satellite could have formed from fragments resulting from the planet's collision with another celestial body, one of the most popular theories about the formation of our Moon. And finally, the third one, the satellites are formed as a result of the general accretion of matter during the formation of the solar system. There are three versions, but none of them fit Venus, the only planet in the solar system with a female name. Or maybe she does have a space companion? In the 17th, 18th, and 19th centuries, different astronomers observed an object near the gorgeous Venus. It was then believed that this mysterious body is none other than the moon of our neighbor. But the problem is that it vanished without a trace, then suddenly appeared out of nowhere. In the 19th century, it was once again observed so well that they even coined the name Nath. But then it disappeared again. According to the records of those years, you can learn that the second planet almost repeated the passage of Venus, but was closer to the ecliptic, and its radius was 1/5 of the radius of Venus. In general, it's some kind of mysticism. The conspiracy theorists are gladly rubbing their hands. Eventually, in 1928, astronomers got fed up with it, and they put an end to the question. There is no such thing and there never was. The question was closed and there was no more discussion, but it gave rise to another question: why Venus doesn't have a satellite? Unusual hypotheses began to emerge, which sometimes bordered on the absurd. For example, there was a hypothesis that our native moon is not our, but in fact, it is a former satellite of Venus, which was captured by the Earth. Or, another funny hypothesis: Jupiter freely and easily walked around the solar system in its youth, looking for a comfortable place of dislocation, and on the way collected satellites from nothing to do. Why not? After all, I'm the biggest and strongest in this class. What can you do to me? All this sounds and may look nice, but with such a cataclysm, keeping Jupiter intact is impossible even theoretically. If we think realistically, there are several major opinions today, which have a majority of supporters. The first one: some believe that there was only one satellite which was attracted by a too slowly rotating planet and was destroyed after merging with it. Astronomers blame the tidal forces of the Sun, which contributed to the catastrophe, and the gravity forces of the cosmic body, which was named after the ancient Roman goddess. Since then, millions of years have passed, and now it is impossible to find out the truth. The second and the most common idea is that billions of years ago Mercury wasn't independent, but orbited Venus, then separated and became a separate unit of the solar system. It's an unproven assumption, but its supporters constitute a significant part of the scientific circles. I don't know the reason, because this hypothesis is untenable. Among arguments in favor, there is a departure of Mercury from Venus exactly to the inner orbit to the Sun. It could also move to the outer region. Also, the hypothesis explains large deviations of Mercury's orbit, resonance character of Mercury's orbit around the Sun, and small rotational moments of Mercury and Venus. This can also explain the reverse rotation of Venus around its axis, heating up of the planet's surface and appearance of a dense atmosphere. On the other hand, there is a serious difference in the orbital velocities of Venus and Mercury. For obtaining such momentum, the impact should be insane. The planets of the solar system got their velocity and direction mostly in the early stages of existence. And if Mercury were a satellite of Venus, it would need simply titanic efforts and a lot of energy to go to a circular orbit around the Sun. Anyway, that's why it's a hypothesis, because there are still a lot of gaps in it. Finally, the third idea of why Venus has no satellites. It sounds very simple: they never existed at all. Venus was created by a cosmic catastrophe, by the merger of two planetoids, so it was left without satellites. Still, not everyone agreed, and in 2006 there was a study based on a computer model of the processes that might have led Venus to its current status. It stated that Venus may have experienced at least 2 collisions with a large asteroid. This collision may have resulted in the formation of a satellite from the fragments, which then slowly spiraled away from the planet. The cause of this distance, according to scientists, could have been tidal interactions, which is how the Moon now slowly crawls away from the Earth. About 10 million years later, Venus experienced another impact that reversed the planet's direction of rotation. Therefore, the motion of the Venusian moon and its orbit began to slow down, resulting in its fall to the planet's surface. It is possible that a second moon was also formed as a result of the second collision, but calculations show that it also had to inevitably fall to Venus. This study not only solves the question of the absence of a Venusian moon, but also explains why Venus rotates so slowly. Sounds like a pretty good, self-sufficient version, doesn't it? Then what did astronomers observe in the 17th-19th centuries? Let me remind you about a huge number of false discoveries in that era, when instead of photographs they drew what they saw. And it was easy to make a mistake. Another question: can new satellites of Venus appear, or is it doomed to eternal loneliness? It is impossible to assert anything, but at least no global changes are expected in the next millennium. However, who knows what will happen next? Perhaps hundreds of thousands, millions of years will pass, and the configuration of the solar system will change dramatically. Then a lonely goddess may have a celestial body close to her, which will rotate beside her and obey her laws. Only time can verify such a hypothesis. However, it would be wrong to say that Venus is completely alone because it has a quasi-satellite asteroid 2002 VE68. Unlike the real Moon, the orbit of the quasi-satellite is unstable. After some time, the mutual motion of the planet and the quasi-satellite goes to other forms of orbital resonance, and this can cause them to scatter in different directions. 2002 VE68 took its current orbit about 7,000 years ago, probably as a result of the approach to the Earth, and according to calculations, will remain in it for about another 500 years, after which it will become one of the Trojans of the solar system. This asteroid can also approach the Earth at a fairly short distance, which will probably cause its orbit to change in the future. By the way, the Earth also has a quasi-satellite, one of them is Carina. To summarize, in the view of our channel, the reason why Venus has no satellites is the following. The planet experiences strong gravitational influences from the Sun and Mercury, and this reduces the possibility of finding stable orbits of any satellites almost to zero. There are many interesting versions, for sure some of them will turn out to be true, but it is still too early to answer with certainty why Venus has no moon. Our neighbor is a very mysterious, but insanely interesting planet. Venus rotates very slowly, a day there lasts 243 Earth days. It rotates in the opposite direction compared to all the other planets in the solar system. All planets rotate counterclockwise, except for Venus. That one, clockwise. The weather conditions here are eerie. The surface is absolutely dry because the planet suffers from a runaway greenhouse effect. Thus, its broad atmosphere is filled with heat-trapping carbon dioxide, which keeps the planet at a constant temperature of about 869 degrees Fahrenheit. Occasionally, there is precipitation in the form of metallic snow. Lightning can be seen here much more often than on Earth, though it doesn't reach the surface. The pressure on the surface is 92 times that of ours. It's also like diving a kilometer below the surface of the ocean. However, there are some nice features. There are no earthquakes on Venus, and the wind speed on the surface is just 2 miles per hour. By the way, in the near future, It is planned to launch spacecraft to Venus to explore it and prepare information for a manned spacecraft. In spite of all hellish conditions, scientists say, it is quite possible to live there for humans, that is, we can colonize our neighbor. Still, this is a topic for a separate video. Write in the comments if you are interested, and we will definitely make such a video.